For centuries now, the Earth has been defenseless against the many asteroids, comets, and space debris present in our vast universe. Luckily for us, though, SpaceX and NASA have teamed up to change things for the better. At least that's the intention of their newest defense mechanism, the DART. But what do we really know about it, and which other space headlines should we be paying attention to? For all this and more, stay tuned. Number 1. Elon Musk takes great strides in avenging the dinosaurs. First up on our list is the space story on everyone's lips, which just so happens to revolve around the protection of Earth from dangerous space rocks. We are, of course, referring to the launch of the DART mission just over a week ago, which was led by SpaceX in conjunction with NASA. And for those of you who don't know, this is the Earth's only true defense system against incoming space debris, which makes the hopeful success of the mission something that citizens of the planet should be concerned about. We wouldn't want ourselves to have to send Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck into space again after all. They've gotten a tad old to deal with an Armageddon-like scenario. But if you spend some time looking into the mission, you'll see that things are a bit different to what we saw in the feature film all those years ago. Rather than launching a spacecraft to land on the asteroid in an attempt to blow it to smithereens, the DART mission has redirection in mind. According to reports, SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket was used to propel the system out of the Earth's atmosphere, after which its own propulsion mechanism took over. It's now heading to an asteroid moon known as Dimorphos, which is approximately 530 feet in diameter. That being said, the journey is a long one, with calculations showing that DART will make contact with the asteroid between September 26th and October 1st of next year. A little more about DART. In other words, it's going to take a while before we actually know whether NASA's double asteroid redirection test is a success or not. But it goes without saying that we're all hopeful that both NASA and SpaceX can use DART to come up with a foolproof plan when it comes to the defense of our planet for otherworldly bodies. According to the scientists who built the defense system at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory in Maryland, DART's goal is to essentially change the motion and direction of the asteroid moon in a way that can be accurately measured by ground telescopes. This means that just after the collision takes place next year, stargazers will compare the before and after images of the asteroid. This will then follow NASA scientists to calculate the trajectory of the asteroid once more. Seeing by how much a system like DART is able to redirect an object as big as Dimorphos, this is just a test though, so there's no need to panic. Dimorphos isn't exactly heading for the Earth, but testing on interplanetary bodies that aren't a threat to us today is a great way to ensure the protection of the Earth tomorrow. At least that's the thought behind the incredible experiment. Either way, at least we're finally able to take steps to bring about our own survival, something that the dinosaurs weren't able to do when they were unfortunately wiped from the Earth by a falling rock of fire. Number 2, NASA postpones but then conducts anticipated spacewalk. Speaking of space debris, NASA found itself having to postpone a spacewalk until late yesterday evening. This was after the International Space Station had sent the space agency a warning about debris that was floating around in its vicinity. And since NASA wasn't able to properly assess the risk that such debris posed to its astronauts, the decision was made to postpone the walk for the good of everyone involved. But like all space debris, it continued to float on into the void, leaving NASA with the go-ahead to greenlight the spacewalking mission. As such, astronauts Thomas Marshburn and Kayla Barron found themselves walking outside of the International Space Station with the intention of replacing a malfunctioning communications antenna that had become problematic for those on board. They also completed a number of other checks and tasks before eventually finding themselves on solid ground with zero complications to face. This shows just how much of a danger space debris can pose to astronauts in space. Something as small as a baseball hurtling through space was able to damage the antenna of the International Space Station. So you can imagine what would have happened if it hit either Marshburn or Barron during the mission. In other words, it's no wonder that NASA decided to postpone the spacewalk until the surrounding area was considered to be clear. Another precaution that NASA took was having both Marshburn and Barron practice a spacewalk in the ISS's neutral buoyancy laboratory. As they say, safety first. Number 3, new images of the red planet have surfaced. There have also been some strides taken when it comes to the robotic exploration of our brilliant little universe. In fact, NASA's own Mars rover, known throughout the community as Curiosity, has just sent some new images of the red planet over to NASA headquarters. For those of you you who don't know, this robotic NASA employee landed on Mars back in August of 2012 and is currently searching the Gale crater of the planet for signs of prior life. You see, the theory in play at the moment is that our universe was once brimming with life, with each planet having its own cycle. Mercury, for example, which has a runaway greenhouse effect, is far too hot to be habitable at the moment. The direct opposite is then true when it comes to Mars, which is further away from the sun and thus unable to house a species like humans. The Earth, on the other hand, finds itself in the so-called Goldilocks zone, which is not too hot and not too cold, allowing for life to be sustained. But this doesn't mean that a species other than us doesn't live on the planet, or that Mars was possible in a different orbit at some point, allowing for a habitable atmosphere. Suffice to say, finding signs of prior life would be an incredible step in the direction of space colonization. But from the panoramic selfie that was snapped by Curiosity a few days ago, the planet still appears quite barren. Number 4, is NASA getting into the space tourism industry? And then we have the news that NASA may very well be getting into the space tourism industry, something that has been suggested after the space organization made the announcement that the International Space Station was on the verge of being replaced. This was no doubt a shock to the community, as the ISS has been operating for a grand 21 years, allowing scientists the opportunity to conduct experiments within the vast environment that space offers. But as it turns out, the ISS was never meant to be around forever, and its modules can't exactly survive within the harsh reality of space for much longer. This is why NASA intends on replacing the ISS with commercially owned space destinations in Earth low orbit come 2030. In other words, we can expect one or more space stations to orbit around our planet in the future. And if reports are to be believed, these will operate for commercial benefit. It's not like NASA is selling out though. In fact, this might actually be a pretty great step in the right direction. We all know that the space tourism industry is going to be a big one after all, and the more money NASA brings in, the bigger the budget of the space agency, and it goes without saying, but the more money NASA has at its disposal, the greater the possibility of making interplanetary strides. We'll all miss the ISS, but we can't wait to see what's next. Number 5, SpaceX successfully launches Starlink satellites. Last but not least, SpaceX has continued to launch further Starlink satellites into the Earth's orbit with the intention of staying above the curve. The launch took place a few hours ago at Cape Canaveral, where SpaceX was found to be operating out of Complex 40. But we're not just talking about a few shiny satellites though. According to an official tweet by the aeronautical company, the successful mission launched 48 Starlink satellites into space, along with 2 Black Sky spacecrafts. For those of you who don't know, Starlink is a constellation of satellites which currently orbit around the Earth, and the intention of this constellation is to provide the planet with internet access. This is done through a complex routine of communication which sees the constellation sending information to transceivers down below. This allows for SpaceX to provide internet access to most of the globe, although it must be said that only countries that have licensed SpaceX to do so can make use of this service. The more Starlink satellites launched, the greater the coverage. So one of these days, even the poor will be able to enjoy the internet we all have at our fingertips. And there you have it. Everything you need to know about what's happening in space today. What do you think about the Starlink constellation though? And do you believe the DART system will end up working? Feel free to let us know in the comments section down below.